All right, guys. So we had a lot of people who are having issues with 6-4 properties of rhombuses, rectangles, and squares. So I want to just go over this kind of really quickly, and I want to look at a few examples for you, try to help you out. We spent a lot of time in person in going back over this yesterday, but figured I needed to go ahead and get a video for those of you that are on NTI. Um, Again, really, this first part can really help you with the characteristics. If you understand the characteristics of each figure, then it's really going to help you with this process. So first, let's talk about number one right here, and actually, you'll kind of understand that is a rectangle, and there's a reason. Again, you'll note that it says that all of these are parallelograms. So a rhombus, a rectangle, and a square, they're all parallelograms, but they are special parallelograms, and there's things that make them special. Again, you'll notice with a rectangle, I have one set of congruent sides and I have another set of congruent sides. So the opposite sides are congruent. I also have a right angle that is in one of my corners. Okay. So as long as it's in one of my corners, it actually applies to all four corners. So it does have four right angles. One more thing I want to talk to you about with a rectangle is if you take the diagonals of a rectangle like this, and that was awful that I just drawed, but you get the idea that these rectangles or these diagonals are actually congruent. So if we were to label this A, B, C, and D, then AC is congruent to BD. Okay, so those are the same length. So if this one was 15 centimeters, for example, then AC would also be 15 centimeters. So that's very important because you're going to see that here in just a few minutes. Again, when we're talking about a square, similar in that instead of having two sets of congruent sides, you actually have all sides that are equal. But the difference between a square and a rhombus, which is this figure over here on number 3, the difference between a square and a rhombus is that you have these 90-degree angles right here, just like you have with a rectangle. Okay, there's also some interesting things that happens with a square in that, again, when you make the diagonals here, there's two things that happens. These diagonals are perpendicular, so there's 90-degree angles all on the inside of here. You will also note that all of these sides are congruent to one another. Okay, so there's a whole lot of conditions that happen with a square. Now let's talk about a rhombus real quick because that's where a lot of your work is. So when we're talking about a rhombus, you know that I have four congruent sides, but I do not have right angles. Okay, at least not in the vertex angles. What I do want you to realize though is that I actually have some congruent angles here. Opposite angles are congruent. So these two angles would be congruent, and these two angles here would be congruent. Okay, so that's one of the characteristics you need to understand about a rhombus. Also, in this same kind of realm that we've been talking about the diagonals. If we make the diagonals of these, I'll try to do a little bit better this time, a little bit steadier hand. You notice what happens here. One, I create perpendicular angles, so there's 90-degree angles all on the inside of here. Also, I want you to realize that you also bisect these angles here. So opposite angles are bisected. So there's a lot of things, a lot of characteristics actually with these parallelograms that can help us to try to solve problems. So let's go down. I want to pick a good one here. So let's pick number 8 for an example. And if you've got a particular example, you can just send me a private message and I'll try to help you with those individually. But on number 8 here, I'm actually looking for 4 angles, right? I'm looking for 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm gonna go ahead and erase that so that it's not on our page, but you get the idea that we're looking for 4 angles there. Now, the only angle we're really given in this whole thing is this one right here, right? We're given the 20 degrees. That's down in this corner. But what I want you to understand is if we go back to our rules that we were talking about with a rhombus, we've got some diagonals here. And these diagonals create something interesting, right? Again, these diagonals create 90-degree angles on the inside. So right away, I could figure out that angle 1 or angle 2, sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and put these over here because these are what we're looking for. So right away, I know that angle 2 has to be 90 degrees, okay? Has to be 90 degrees because, again, the diagonals are perpendicular. They make 90-degree angles wherever they are. So with that said, what I want you to really focus on now is just focus on the fact that really I have a little mini triangle right here, right? And in this little mini triangle, I have one angle that is 20 degrees, one angle that is 90 degrees, and I'm looking for the other one. Remember, all triangles add up to 180 degrees. And so in order to find angle 1, really all I have to do is just take 180 minus 90 minus 20, and that will tell me what angle 1 is. And we all know that that would be 70. And so angle 1 is 70 degrees. Now, another little rule that we need to talk about and understand now, because now that we know that number 1 is 70 degrees, look down here at angle 3 and angle 4, because we said that when we're talking about rhombuses, that those diagonals actually bisect the angles. So in other words, if this was 50 degrees, then this would also be 50 degrees, okay? And as well, we know that this angle across from it has to be exactly the same. So this would be 50 degrees, and this would be 50 degrees. So again, you get one piece of the puzzle, and it really helps you to figure out all the other pieces. And so if this angle 1 right here is 70 degrees, then I have to conclude that angle 3 is also 70 degrees, and angle 4 is also 70 degrees. So very quickly, you can see how that we kind of work the puzzle and figure out what's what. Again, all of these are going to have similar situations where that you're going to be able to figure out what one or two of the angles is, and that's really going to help you to figure out what the other angles are. Now remember, for all of these questions that you're doing here, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way through 13, it's telling you that you are dealing with a rhombus, okay? So those are really the only characteristics that you really need to be thinking about and looking at. So I want to move down real quickly to down here at the bottom, because these problems, 14, 15, 16, 17, and actually 18 and 19, they're all similar problems. And maybe you just read those instructions and thought, oh, Lord, there's no way I can figure this out. Well, anytime we don't really know what to do, one of the things we ought to do is we ought to go ahead and draw out a picture. And so it says HIJK is a rectangle. Find the value of X and then find the length of each diagonal. So what I'm going to do over here first is I'm going to go ahead and draw out H, I, J, and K. All right. And then it says find the value of X and the length of each diagonal. So let's go ahead and draw diagonals in here. And then keep in mind what it's really telling me. It's telling me find the value of X. So HJ, this length here, HJ, is 3X plus 5. I'm just going to write it there. But you understand that that is the entire thing, right? That's this entire piece. So 3X plus 5. And then it tells me that IK, which is the other one going this way, is 5X minus 9. But here's what we need to understand about the diagonals of a rectangle. Remember, the diagonals of a rectangle we said up here in our little notes that we were making, that the diagonals of a rectangle are congruent. So if the diagonals of a rectangle are congruent, then that means that these two things that I'm looking at over here in number 15, I'm sorry if I'm making you dizzy, is that these two diagonals have to be congruent or equal. So literally, guys, all you have to do on these problems is take the 3X plus 5 and set it equal to 5X minus 9. You don't have to draw this out every time. I just drew this out so that you could kind of understand what the problem's really saying. And I would encourage you, anytime that you're given words like that in instructions, go ahead and draw it out, see what it looks like, and see if a picture really helps you. Okay, so again, all we do here, you know how to do this, but I'm going to help you with this. Subtract 3X from both sides. So 5 equals 2X minus 9. And then I'm going to go ahead and add 9 to both sides, which is going to make 14. So X equals 7, okay, if I divide by 2. So if x equals 7, I found the value of x, but notice what else it's asking me to do. It's asking me to find the length of each diagonal. Well, I know that these diagonals are equal, so I don't have to put it in each one of them. I could just put it in one of them, okay? So x equals 7 is part of my answer, but now let's go ahead and just put it back into this one, the 3x plus 5. So 3 times 7 plus 5, 3 times 7 is 21, plus 5 equals 26. And again, we know that those have to be the same because they are equal, okay? So this would be our other part of that answer, would be 26. And that's basically all you have to do. Again, you're going to have the same similar situation here for these two problems for number 18 and 19. Here, you're just finding the most precise name for each quadrilateral. And then here you are just finding the value of the variables. Again, just take the properties. Notice that a rhombus has congruent sides. So if these are congruent, set them equal. Square, similar situation. If these are congruent, set them equal. So those I think you could actually do. Remember, you don't have to do number 28. So hopefully that will be helpful. Again, if you need individual help, please just reach out to me and I would be glad to send me a private message and I will be glad to try to help you walk through any one particular problem that you may be having, okay? Hopefully this has been helpful to you today. Thanks.